What are you doing in 1 hour? Drizzly, you're getting your favorite beer, wine, and spirits delivered right to your door from Drizzly. Drizzly is the most convenient way to buy beer, wine, and spirits, with delivery to your doorstep in under 60 minutes. Right now, Drizzly is giving new customers $5 off their first order with code FAST5. Go download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. And use promo code FAST5 for $5 off your first order.
Hey everybody, welcome to Public Access America's Just the Tip. My Just the Tip is you need to pay attention more to what your kids are doing online. Facebook has this dirty little pervy uncle called Instagram, and if your child's under 13, they're not supposed to be on there. And I just want to say there is some very disturbing stuff on Instagram involving very small children, and you need to monitor that. You need to know what your kid is dressing like when they're doing these little dances and videos. You need to pay more attention to your kids, because there's a lot of gross people out there.
You know,
it's just gross to me. I don't trust Instagram and Facebook to begin with, and to let my child just alone with them disturbs.
Just the tip. Parents, stop giving your kids access to things just to get them to shut up.
It is time now for something positive.
We might be headed to the promised land,
speaking the truth and finding our external liberty once we internally liberate ourselves.
Problem can only be solved when there is a kind of coalition of conscience.
Because that is how it works.
This is the beginning, it is not the finale, and that's why we're here, and that's why we rally.
We've got to be that creative minority.
Find a way to get in the way. I got in trouble. It was good trouble. It was necessary trouble.
Frankly, I know we've got to do something.
I love that. So I, not that we're on any subject, I cleaned up my band page, and then I put 4 new tracks out, and I don't promote them or anything, but I got somebody commented on my Megadeth cover, The Best, and I was like, I don't know how sarcastic that is. But then somebody reposted my version of Pantera's Walk, and I was like, that's cool. I got 6 listens and a repost, and it's like, it's a basic beat because I'm not a musician, but I'm trying to get my sound and style together. So if somebody did want to collaborate and actually put music to those lyrics that I put up, they could do that. And I like that. Maybe I'll be a band and I'll start making money off of iTunes in some way.
There you go.
I love
sit there and record music.
Yeah, I'm really bad at it. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm bad at it, but other people have said they enjoy the music, and I like that. So it's just, for me, it's more of a therapy, and I like that. To me, because I'm blind, songs are more of a picture of the past than pictures are to me.
Mm-hmm.
So the Venn diagram of things that you and I believe in. Jeffrey, I know you.
All right, well,
I know you hate me for this. Well, no, I know you don't hate me for it, but you're getting tired of it. But the thing is, Title 42, I've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Immigration, I've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about it so much because there's this theory. There's a fire hose theory and a raincoat theory. People will spray bullshit on you before you know the truth, or you get a raincoat on them by spewing the truth on them, right? And immigration and Title 42 is what is going, the Republicans are tying every problem to. And that's why I wanted to talk about that. And your thing is food insecurity. You hate it. Like, it triggers you. You go black. You want to feed the world. And so Greg Abbott stopping trucks that have already been examined by Border Patrol a mile up the road, testing their tires and creating a 36-hour-long delay, making food rot crossing our border, increases costs. And it's something so big, and it affects America, it affects the globe, and it affects Texas. You know what I mean? Do you know about this? Have you heard about
I
this? Because
do.
truckers are really getting upset, and
I
Beto
do.
O'Rourke is getting angry.
hmm
All right, so what's your view on this? I mean, does it make sense? So what he's saying, I'm sorry, I'll let you speak. He's saying that he's doing this because Joe Biden ended Title 42, but Title 42 doesn't end until the end of next month. And it's an illegitimate, I've already told you, an illegitimate way of keeping people out. And stopping trucks for tire pressure doesn't make sense. How are you stopping immigration? It's weird to me. And Greg Abbott, what the fuck?
Oh, this is another one of those issues where the Conservative Party is like, we're the party of law and order, and we're also the party of, less government, but we're also the party of, we're going to get the fucking government involved in every little fucking thing because, we've got our priorities that we're going to do. Oh, God, this is why I hate the Conservative Party right now. So, the real reason, and I'm interested to see if anybody will do this, is that Greg Abbott is tired of undocumented people coming across the border into Texas.
7,000 a day.
That's the real answer.
Right.
And so rather than deal with it in any other number of different ways, he decided to take it out on truck drivers, which typically are the people who vote conservative.
Right.
And
I'm sorry, so are ranchers, so are farmers. And those two rely on the day labor crossing the border. Like you can't harvest soybeans in Texas unless you have day workers.
So basically what happened was Greg Abbott instituted these checks simply so that way he could push these different states in Mexico in order to get them to stem immigration crossings into Texas. Now, this is where I think it gets really, really, really interesting. Basically, you have the United States, you have ICE, you have border patrol that's supposed to be doing this stuff as it is. And they really do a lot. Like there's no question about that. They actually are they really do a lot on this realm. To me, this was political theater and a stunt. And the reason I say that is that, well, not only did they not catch anybody, they wrote a bunch of tickets on vehicles that are, for which is really funny. Like I want you to consider this. During all of these stops, Texas wrote some 12,000 tickets, but said that they would no longer do that now that they've reached agreements with 3 of the 4 Mexican states, which means this is one of those things that I hate. They gave the order essentially that they were going to have zero tolerance policies on things that were already law.
Right.
And so basically what they've been doing is, up till this point, strategically ignoring their own laws until they decided they wanted to get something accomplished. And so they revoked that officer discretion and forced them to write all of these different tickets during that time. So this is where, like, this is bullshit, and I'm going to call it out as bullshit because you were fine with this before, and then you weren't fine with it because you wanted to get this, the stem of people coming across the border stopped.
Right.
And now that you've done that, supposedly, you're supposedly going to be fine with this again. And that's where this doesn't make any sense. If you're going to have these laws and regulations, you have to enforce them, period, end of story.
Right.
Or what this means was they discriminated against the people that were coming through with these trucks and would do what I would, look at as essentially malicious prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had a different goal that they want. Now this will be an interesting. I'm curious to see if there are any truckers unions that will go out and go after the Texas government for this in federal court, because I do believe that for not just for losses, but I would argue for discriminatory practice. So it would be really interesting to me to see if there is a case there, because you can't sit down and say this was fine, suddenly it's not fine, now it'll be fine again.
Right.
Like, look, if you know, the expectation is that if somebody breaks the law and you get caught breaking the law, then you're going to pay a fine. But the idea that you're going to turn on and off the enforcement of this law, why the fuck is it a law then? What's the point of this?
That's how Republicans see laws, as levers to turn on and off. Like, oh, we're going to entrap a bunch of white people, turn it off. Oh, a black person, turn it on. Here's an immigrant, turn it on. So my issue is that not only does it increase food insecurity and inflation here, but right now there's this little thing like the Ukraine-Russian war going on that's actually starving people in much, much poorer countries. And if there's a lack of food globally, and the U.S. has any ability to help with that, it's hindered by Greg Abbott's stupid fucking enforcement that has nothing to do with it. People are starving all over the world, and we can attribute that to two men. And one of them is Greg Abbott.
That was a really fucking dumb move. And I think that I think it was really,
but he got what he wanted, and he might get reelected because of it.
Well, that's the problem of, you know, I think that's one of the things that people who are blind supporters of these parties, they're willing to overlook that. My guy's in office. He wouldn't do that to me. He wouldn't.
He did.
He did.
Suffer from my politics. That's the Republican agenda.
And that's exactly what's going to happen is Texans are going to suffer higher produce prices because of those politics.
So are we.
Texans,
$5 avocados, bro. $3 carrots. This is crazy. That's crazy. You know, and that's not even to mention the car parts that are coming across the border. You know?
At least those don't go bad.
I mean, we've been fighting inflation on new vehicles for years now, and we finally got the supply chain back going. We're going to start creating chips here. We're getting everything, the supply chain shortened, and there's Greg Abbott sticking his thumb in the dike. You know, it's like, fuck you, Greg. It's one thing. Like, it's one thing to affect Texans, but you're affecting Americans too. You know.
Well, but this is the thing, though. Is it's like it is rules for thee, but not for me. If you think that Greg Abbott is going to suffer any of his own politics, you're fucking dumb. He is not going to experience any sort of problems because of the decisions he makes. And I want everybody that listens to this to think about that.
Right.
The politicians that make these decisions, it doesn't matter if they're Republicans or Democrats, liberals or conservatives.
Right.
The decisions that they make, they don't have to suffer through. Period. End of story.
Right. Good point. I just want to say on that same point, Greg Abbott is going to be going from public housing and a government income to disability, where he's in public housing and a government income. He is the version of the elite welfare state that looks down on people on actual welfare.
So to me, it was a bold move. I think it was a real fucking dumb move. And I will be curious to see if any of the trucking companies, associations, unions go after him in federal court for this decision, because it really was malicious prosecution. It was, I would even argue it was unreasonable search and seizure, because
they weren't allowed to go into the trucks in any way. They were there to do the engine maintenance and tire pressures.
Well, and even still, it's like I would still consider it unreasonable search and seizure.
Okay.
Simply because
illegal detainment.
It wasn't that these vehicles had any, sure, there might have been some mechanical issues, but what they've essentially shown is that these mechanical issues were only a problem because the governor wanted to stem the flow of undocumented.
Right.
And after this, he doesn't give a shit again.
Well,
so
until he does.
I would call it
until he does.
I would call it unreasonable search and seizure. Now, if
well,
it was something
you're more
like,
legal
hey,
mind than I am. That's for sure.
Here's the thing, like if it was like, hey, we're going to be stepping up and looking at the number of vehicles coming across our borders that are having problems, because we have a number of vehicles that, let's say keep getting abandoned, keep breaking down, keep clogging up our infrastructure because they're poorly maintained.
Right.
Yeah, we'd all bitch and moan about it, but if it was continual enforcement and it made people take care of their vehicles before entering the country, yeah, we'd bitch about it, but eventually, we would get over it because, well, if these trucks are breaking down and they're causing traffic jams and that's causing increased fuel usage and that's causing things to get from point A to point B slower, yeah, okay, that's a problem.
Right.
But that's not what the problem was. The problem was not related to the fucking vehicles. The problem was related to immigration.
100 miles away.
Exactly. So I would call what was done unreasonable search and seizure.
And by the way, they're just little brown people that want to harvest your fucking cabbage. Like they're not people. they want jobs. Yeah. Like I suppose there's some criminals in every group. The spectrum of criminality might happen, but
fuck, you could pull together 100 white people and you'll probably get 5 with a criminal record.
Right, but these are the people that are packing your chicken in plants for like $3 an hour because they're not legal. They come in, they work, they get a green card, like whatever they do. Now it's been made illegal. So those same people that used to have a card to cross the border, come and work and then go back are illegal now. So they have to secretly cross. And they're just doing this so that you can eat food, like right now, an immigrant died this week so that you could have your fucking cornflakes and you don't even know it,
This was what we call a stupid move because I really do think that he violated federal law by doing this.
It really draws attention to it, right?
Well, it really does. And it was, it was huge. This wasn't a little hiccup this was a fucking huge problem.
A huge problem.
And I would honestly be surprised if the DOJ isn't already investigating him for doing this.
Good.
Because this, like I said, I do believe that this would fall under unreasonable search and seizure. Because you weren't doing this before, you're doing it now after you got this, you just had this glitch in the matrix time period where you wanted something done that had nothing to do with the vehicles themselves.
It's a two-tiered
system. I think it is unreasonable search and seizure. I think if it was in a whole new policy that Texas had enacted to keep vehicles from breaking down and clogging Texas highways, yeah, you and I would bitch about it and call it stupid, but it would be neither here nor there.
The truth is if he had that issue, he could have just talked to the border, border control, I can't remember the agency that runs the border, but he Border
Patrol.
Yeah, he could talk to them
Customs
and say, hey, by the way, when we have these trucks going through the border, is there any way you could check their tire pressures? Just make sure they're running okay.
And they do.
They do. That's my problem is they do all of that. And then a mile down the road, there's a couple state troopers blocking the road saying, stop, I'm going to check your tires. They just checked them. And what is this about? Immigrants 100 miles away crossing the border.
Yep. So, and here's where I would say that,
and to make Biden look bad, by the way, which
made Texas look bad because, if they had actually caught some illegal people entering the country, I would argue that it would be different.
But Greg Abbott bust illegal immigrants to Washington.
Yep. So I honestly I honestly think that Greg Abbott really fucked himself over, and I would honestly be surprised if he didn't end up the subject of a DOJ.
Well, their attorney general is, their lieutenant governor's about to be Dan Patrick, and then you got Beto O'Rourke, who is 2 points behind in the polls. So, and I'm going to tell you, I emailed Beto O'Rourke. and I got past the first defenses. Like they sent it to the media for scheduling, which, you know, Beto O'Rourke, that's a long ways out, because a lot of people want to talk to him. I'm going to say, I don't know whether I agree with Beto on a lot of things. I like that he has the stance he has, and I believe him. There isn't a lot of politicians I believe, and Beto is, for better or for worse. When he said, yeah, we want to take your guns, I understood that a bunch of his constituents just got shot to death, you know, but I believe him that he wants to fix this abortion thing, that he wants to fix this education thing. Jeffrey, like, let's see, Texas teachers, they have to do 200 hours of training before they can keep their jobs. And they don't want to do it because they don't want to get paid. They're not getting paid to do this training. 200 hours of training.
So we're looking at 5 weeks at 40 hours a week.
Yeah, and it's
full-time training.
It's to improve reading for kids age kindergarten through 3rd grade. And so the object is to make the teachers, I don't understand. You're pushing teachers to the edges everywhere you can. Why are they attacking the education system? I don't understand.
Because they think that the education system is where liberal indoctrination takes place.
That's where liberal indoctrination happens on Pornhub. Get over it. It's not in our schools. Sorry, it's just the way it is.
It's insane, and it's like I grew up in a very conservative place in the world, and like I guarantee you that a lot of these places, like the books that they're reading, this shit is so fucking old that like math hasn't functionally, like, okay, so core math, whatever the fuck this common core stuff is, it's insane.
Yeah.
But
they're censoring the math books now because there's statistics that they're claiming are critical race theory indoctrination because they're stats. That's scary to me that they're doing this, and it makes me wonder why they want stupid voters, why they want a stupid constituency.
The answer, well, I mean, think about it. It's easy. Look at what's happening in Russia.
If you're making me learn lies, that doesn't mean I'm smart, right?
No, but it means that if all you can be exposed to are lies, it's easier for you to tell a bunch of lies and have one of them be believable, and the government go, we're going to go with that one.
That's right. I mean, that's the fire hose theory. Donald Trump lied 28,000 times in 4 years, or misled, or spoken untruth. That's my point. He did that because no truth could get in that shitstorm, you know? Like right now in Russia, people are putting facts about the Ukraine war on labels next to supermarket items. So if you go to scan an item, it'll say the war in Ukraine has killed 20,000, you know what I mean? Or whatever the stats are. And a lady just got arrested for that, for putting a label on. Like right now in Poland, if you go to I can't remember, it's like a Home Depot style that's in Russia that hasn't pulled out yet. Like somebody hacked their website, and in the descriptions of the items, it was this company supports the, you know, genocide. Like people are finding the smallest ways to get the truth out, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that, you know, everybody sits down and goes through, you know, CRT is like one of the Republican boogeymen,
right?
Like trans kids as one of the new Republican.
But they're both only boogeymen if people don't learn about them. Like if they just take the Republicans' word for it. If people go and research what the boogeyman is, that's my point on immigration. If you research it, Todd, you would realize that none of these things are the boogeymen you think they are. They're just a demon that a guy uses to control your decisions.
And the crazy thing is that, you know, because of the way that the narrative is spoken, it's like kids are choosing, you know, to become trans. And I'm sitting here going, man, my kids are fucking lazy, and I don't know anytime that they're going to choose to play life on fucking hard mode.
Right. And people forget about that. Being gay
But-
isn't
but
like
it-
a luxury in this world, you know? Being disabled isn't a luxury. People aren't claiming to be disabled so they can get some fucking windfall. People aren't black purposely, you know? They don't pick these struggles.
Right. And that's the difference is that when you frame it all around choice, which because, we're supposed to be America and the freedom of choice, but they cannot get over the concept idea that some things are not choice. Like
Yeah.
the way that somebody's brain functions is not choice. And whether or not it's a mental illness or not.
Okay.
It's not.
It's not. No, you said it. Why
I
would I
mean,
repeat
it's on. It's. I mean, it's on the DSM-5 gender dysphoria, but it's I would argue that it's not. It's not a mental illness because that would imply that there's something that you could do to make it better, and well, there kind of is and kind of isn't.
There is.
'Cause-
Get a dick in your ass if you're gay. You'll love it.
Well-
You'll love it. You know what I mean?
Being gay is no longer on the DSM, but in terms of
Good.
being trans, on the other hand, what we consider mental illness, think about it this way. The things that we consider mental illnesses, they're actually things you can do to the brain to fix it.
Yeah, but
So
you got to.
so think about that. If you have depression, there's medication.
Right.
There's medications that you can do in order to fix it. Bipolar, there's medications. If you have any number of different mental illnesses, there's medications that you can use to treat it. There is nothing that you can do to the brain to treat people who are trans.
Well, you got to remember, for a long time, the only example of a trans person was Buffalo Bill. So it was associated.
Not true. And this is something I just learned here this week.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I wanted to say that's
in fact,
why
we're going to go back.
That's why I
thousands
like. That's
of
why I
years.
like I'm Jazz, because it gives a different. But go ahead.
Dionysus.
Dionysus. Tell me more.
Let's see. If I remember right, I want to say it's Dionysus. Dionysus.
I think there was a lot of gender fluidity in the Greek and Roman times. You know what I mean?
Let's see here.
It was more about pleasure than it was an opulence than it was about a life decision.
Dionysus. So the Greek god Dionysus.
Love them.
This is where this gets really fun, and I'm going to go with people don't understand. So Dionysus is born the god of wine, right?
Okay.
But what some people don't realize is that Dionysus was born a woman, but became a man.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the.
Zeus was represented as both a man and a goose, what is it? A swan, like I don't know.
Let's see here. So if I remember
Still,
right,
I'm going to say that Buffalo Bill is way more memorable.
well,
and
I mean,
psychotic.
in terms of our own.
And that's
Let's
my
see
point
here.
is that we need more portrayals of positivity than negativity.
Let's see here.
If people only saw handicapped people on the news killing people, then they would be scared to death of handicapped people.
Yeah, so I would have to sit down and
Yeah.
read this, but Dionysus was born a woman, became a man, is the Greek god of wine. And so here you've had this, I would argue, the story of somebody who is trans from long, long ago.
But is it trans or is it just gender fluidity? A god is a god and it can be anything.
Well, I mean, the way that they talk about it is that it was born a woman, but literally turns into a man.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
So
But again,
this is
it's
where
attached to the god of wine, inebriation. Like there's still a stigma there. Maybe.
So it's one of those things. People will ignore stories ignore
Okay.
history in order to create a narrative. Like, let's be real honest, Dionysus was around long before the Bible existed.
Agreed.
And so, when you force, religious texts upon people, which I would argue is also a form of indoctrination,
Mm-hmm.
You end up with a lot of things that you don't learn because they are strategically selected out of.
That's right.
It's one of the reasons why I don't support book banning or book burning or any of the number of different things. It's like, I don't give a shit if you have, the Constitution sitting in between, the writings of Karl Marx and Adolf Hitler.
Right. It's all knowledge, right?
It's all knowledge, because here's the thing is that even when you read bad stuff, you develop critical thinking about what that shit actually means and how it's insane.
This episode is brought to you by Grant Thornton. You may know them as an audit, tax, and advisory firm that's part of a global member network with over 60,000 employees. But they do more than numbers. They're the listening ear and fresh perspective you need to turn today's challenges into opportunities. Kind of like a podcast, if it was just for you. Learn more at gt.com. Copyright 2022 Grant Thornton LLP. All rights reserved. U.S. member firm of Grant Thornton International Limited in the U.S. Visit gt.com for details. This podcast is brought to you by Grant Thornton, an audit, tax, and advisory firm you already have something in common with. They listen too. Grant Thornton takes the time to truly understand your challenges, uncovering inspired solutions that help you turn them into opportunities. Because business today needs fresh perspective, not more noise. Start a conversation at gt.com.
You also know how to debate it going forward. And you are absolutely right. And I want to get this on the record. LGBTIA plus history is impossible to find. It's really hard to document. You have a protest and that's it. You know what I mean? You have Harvey Milk and that's it. There's not a lot of I can't go back to the 1700s, and I know there was LGBTIA activity, but it's just hard to document. It's gone into frivolous, opulent lifestyle instead of LGBTIA.
There was a lot of code switching that was used in a lot of these times. So, for example, the King Ludwig of Bavaria actually was, I guess, a raging homosexual who had the hugest crush on Richard Wagner, one of the great composers, and apparently famously threw a fit because Richard Wagner did not return King Ludwig's feelings.
Makes sense.
So, I mean, even within kingdoms, you had noted cases of homosexuality.
That's what I'm saying. Caligula, the English king Richard, they had open, fluid lifestyles. If they saw a man that they liked, that was what they did that night. If there would be a party and it was just body on bodies of having fun, and it's opulence. It's not gay. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting because that history has been suppressed in a lot of ways. That history has been taken off the shelf in a lot of ways. And replaced with you need to procreate. That's what it's for.
Replaced with, lessons from the Bible, which somehow does not constitute doctrination, despite the fact that we have separation of church and state. Now, look, I'm not saying that your kids need to bring home books on, assigned reading on LGBTQ stuff, but I do think that those things need to be available for kids to read. Not unlike the Bible or the Torah or the Quran or any number of other religious texts out there.
The beta text.
Because
India.
To me, having all of that information available is what allows us to sit down and have fruitful discussions about any number of things. For me, I struggled with the concept that, a Buddhist who devoted his life to peace and helping others and prayer, for peace, was going to go to hell because he didn't believe in Jesus Christ. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And I would argue that Jesus wouldn't say that you have to believe in me or you're going to go burn. Right. Jesus would have never said that. What the fuck?
That's right.
That does not make any sense. That does not make any sense if you read the book at all.
Yeah. we don't live by the morals of the Bible. We live of the word of it, and we look for words, and we'll read them backwards, or we'll read them like diagonally to get the answer we want from the Bible. That's what it's built for. If you don't believe the Bible, read it backwards. You know what I mean?
And the literal interpretations of it versus how figuratively a lot of this didn't make any sense. It's like, Revelations. I mean, if you read Revelations and you read Roman history, you're like, oh, this is when Rome was burning.
Mm-hmm. It's a way to tell people to be nice and stop hurting each other. And it's also a way to tell people, hey, if you're going to blow your load, make a baby, because we need to fill our pews so that we can get money and donations so that we can tell people to make more people. You know what I mean? That's what that's what the Catholic religion was based on. Make more people. Don't you dare have homosexual sex. That doesn't make a person. That won't go in our pew. We won't make money off that. So it wasn't based on, oh, it's an immoral thing. It was based on a financial decision by the church,
I mean, and realistically, like even up until the 800s, women could be priests in the Catholic Church. And on top of that, in order to have your sins forgiven, you had to pay for it.
Yeah. There's no I.O.U. for atonement. I put that on Twitter last week because there was a section. The Catholic Church started taking money for absolution, and then a certain I think the Pentecost, a certain section went, no, that's not right, and they split off. So they were Catholics that didn't take money for absolution, and there was this big difference. And then it all splits from the same shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the same story. Everybody says every story can be traced back to Shakespeare. Every religion can be just. It's a repetitive form of the same thing. Like the Torah is the same thing as the Quran, which is the same thing as the Bible, which is the same thing as the golden fucking templates, Joseph Smith and the Mormons. It's all the same shit. It's all meant to tell you not to do what you're supposed to do and do something else instead, So sticking on Texas, do you know who Crystal Mason is?
Crystal Mason. No, I don't.
Crystal Mason is a black woman. She got out of prison. She went to the Board of Elections and said, I want to fill out a provisional ballot. They said, you can't. She said, why not? They said, well, because you're on parole. She said, no, I'm not on parole. She went to her parole officer. Her parole officer said, here's a note that says you can vote. She took it to the election board, gave it to the election board. The election board said, well, you can fill out a provisional ballot. And she did that. And her vote wasn't counted because she did not, in fact, have the right to vote, although everybody said she did. And now she's facing 5 years in prison because she cast a provisional vote based on the election board giving her the okay because her parole officer gave her the okay. I mean, she's not Mark Meadows in Virginia voting from a double wide trailer that she knows nothing about, right? But there's this
I remember
there's this
story
two-tiered system, and I want to take any chance I can to say that that's the real issue, and that's what people are giving up on. Why would we hold Mike Lee accountable when we already know he's a criminal, and you do too, and you do nothing about it, but you chase this lady for 5 years, dude, has been facing every Wednesday an appeal that might send her to jail for 5 years. Every Wednesday she wakes up and she might be going to prison, but yet Mark Meadows, who the fuck cares about him? The lady that owns the double wide doesn't even know who Mark Meadows is. You know what I mean? But he's okay. Yep. It's okay for him to do it. A guy in Pennsylvania resurrects his dead mom to vote for her. He gets 6 months probation, right?
Yep.
And the weird thing is it's different states. So it's hard to calculate, Texas is being mean to a black lady, but Pennsylvania is being nice to a white man. So how do you compare all this? But there is this system, this two-tiered system. White people can get away with shit that black people can't, and white rich people can get away with shit that poor white people can't get away with. It's the staggered tier system that drives me crazy. And politicians are like, why are you disenfranchised? Because we see this, and you don't think we see it, but we see it,
Right. And that's the thing is like the fact that she got a letter from her parole officer saying, oh no, you should be good to vote.
Yeah.
That right there shows, number one, that whatever this case is against her needs to be tossed out.
That's
because,
right.
You know, somebody from, and this dude probably, either if he's not fired, probably needs to at least go on administrative leave.
Well, here's the thing. It was a provisional ballot. She didn't vote, but she's accused of voting illegally. But it's a provisional ballot, which means it doesn't count unless it is legal. But it wasn't legal, so it doesn't count. But she got arrested for voting illegal. She never voted. She tried.
It was never counted.
I mean, she put it in the "if I can, will you put this in there" form? You know what I mean? It wasn't like she tried shoving it through and coming back in sunglasses to vote again for his brother. Well, you know.
And there's nothing that you can do to go through and just ask the question of the judge, hey, am I allowed to vote?
Right.
And get a ruling on that.
Right. But you know what it does do? It scares the shit out of everyone else in that same scenario. Every other brown person, black person, minority person in that state is like, we could be the next Crystal Mason. And I think that's the point.
Yep.
That's sick.
Absolutely. Which is really fucked up, especially when you're told by the person that you're supposed to be checking in on this stuff with.
Right.
Yeah, that's fucked.
So I don't know. That's just Texas. Welcome to Texas, everybody.
The rules are made up and the enforcement doesn't matter until it does, and then it won't again.
So is Russia a terrorist state?
At this point, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've known that for a while. You look at I will give you a few.
Oh, I agree. They're using ISIS tactics. I'm just wondering. I wanted to get your opinion.
So I would say that yes, they're a terrorist state. Here is my opinion on why I would argue that. Number one, the Novichok poisonings that have been done around the world to opposition Alexei Navalny, but also to former spy in Salisbury, England.
That's right.
It was.
They put radioactive poison on a doorknob, dude.
Yeah. So I mean, that right there is just number one, like terrorist.
And there was another guy in a hotel room that left traces of radioactivity all over the place.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So there's that. You have cyber hacking, cyber ransoms that are done by the Russian government. And then of course you have what essentially is, military orders, but they refuse to fly their own fucking flag on their vehicles.
Right.
Like, bruh, come on, we know it's fucking you.
Right. Not to mention bombing civilians, putting automatic weapons in Toyota Tundras. They learned a lot of shit in Syria that they're using here, and they learned that shit from ISIS. Oh, you know what I mean?
They put fucking landmines in farmers' fields, and now that they're trying to do planting, there's a case where a Ukrainian farmer actually got blown up because he hit a fucking anti-tank mine.
They're digging up bodies to burn them to hide evidence that they killed people.
They're also booby-trapping bodies that are left behind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would agree that Russia is a state sponsor of terrorism.
Right. Are you looking forward to the new Nordic NATO?
Wow, now that's going to be fucking fun.
800 extra miles of NATO territory, NATO border. I love it.
Once again,
I love it.
Once again, I'm just going to say this. NATO was fucking floundering, especially under Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And Russia has done more to sell NATO than NATO could do to sell NATO.
Yeah. And did you hear Trump said he actually rebuilt NATO from the ground up? So
no, not true. Number one,
he did get people to invest more into NATO is what they should be doing, and I think that's what he's considering rebuilding or reforming.
Well, and that was something that needed to happen. I would argue is that, these countries needed to invest in their own, because logistically speaking, if there was a problem that needed to be addressed, if we needed to get the kind of troops over there that we needed in order to address a problem, Europe has to defend themselves first. NATO has to defend themselves first while we get more assets over there, while we get more supplies over there, while we get more technology over there. And NATO is kind of like that, it's kind of like that preparedness. It's like, here's our forward operating stuff in case we need it,
right,
while we go and get the rest of our shit.
Right. So one of either NATO was a paper tiger or Putin was, Did you hear that he sent a cease and desist letter about us arming Ukraine? So this, I find
Yeah.
what I find interesting is he's threatening retaliation for this. And isn't that an Article 5 situation? If he was
No.
to cyber attack us, isn't that an attack on one is an attack on all? Not that we would bring our armies in, but wouldn't all of NATO offer a response to that?
There's been a lot of discussion, and I don't know that when NATO was originally drawn up that cyber was necessarily considered a part of that treaty.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
There's been a lot of discussion between different parties, and I think it just kind of depends on what the goal is. I think
avoiding it.
It's not. I mean, I when I say that, I mean what Russia's goal would be, or any other nation state's goal would be in doing a cyber attack against a NATO member. So, like, for example, if the goal was to cyber attack Poland so that way their defense systems were down,
right?
Yes. But if it was like to hold their central bank hostage, it's a tough one.
Okay.
I don't know that it's particularly clear what would necessarily constitute an Article 5 trigger in the cyber realm. And I think there's a lot of discussion going on about that now.
Does it make more sense for Biden to declare that red line before Putin does? Or does that just provoke Putin?
I think, well, I mean, joining NATO provokes Putin. Not joining NATO provokes Putin.
I took a shit earlier that provoked Putin. You know what I mean?
At this point, it doesn't really matter. Putin's off his fucking rocker.
Well, that's the agenda of Russia, is to be provoked, is to act provoked. You know what I mean? About everything.
Yeah, and that's realistically all that's happening is that Putin's basically deciding what's going to piss him off today,
right?
And then the Russian army has to react to that. So
Putin had a hangnail and he threatened to retaliate with nukes.
Yeah, basically. So, I mean, that's the tough part about Article 5 is that I think that there is more discussions and agreements that have to be held when it comes to cyberspace and Article 5.
Gotcha.
But I think that's one of those ones where whenever they decide, they're going to have to communicate that very clearly to the world, because that would also require a response in kind, which would mean that all of these different nations would then supposedly have to be on the hook to supply cyber assets in order to deal with whatever attack happened on somebody's infrastructure. So that makes things a little interesting and a little more difficult. It's not like a conventional battlefield where it's like
exactly,
if you have a missile or a plane or a tank or an army cross a border, it's very much you've decided to do something offensive, we're a defensive alliance, now you're going to have to deal with us.
Doesn't evil work in those gray areas though? Like China can shoot a satellite in space and we're like, well, it wasn't ground war, so we don't know what to do.
I mean, it's not like we didn't shoot a satellite in space.
Of course we do.
We did too. It's like that's one of those things where the faux outrage it gets so fucking annoying. So China shoots down one of their satellites that's having problems, and China is irresponsible and blah 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 blah. Meanwhile, in 2009, we did the same shit when we shot down one of our tumbling satellites, and it was like, it was a necessary operation, and this was going to be, and it's like, okay, come on, like. It's either fucking stupid or it's not, and you all just have to figure out. It's not this is one of those things. Like, I'm not necessarily sympathetic to the Chinese government, but how could you not look at us shooting down one of our own satellites,
right,
from another perspective and not see that as a potential provocation? Like, especially if you're saying, hey, don't you dare fucking do this, but watch us.
It shows them we have the capability to do that, and they want the capability as well. But faux outrage, I like that. China's faux outrage, I like that. And you know who hates Lindsey Graham more than me? China. He visited Taiwan. They held fucking war games around Taiwan because of it. Lindsey Graham is nothing. He just went there to get some sweet, sweet Taiwanese tail, and we're holding war games because of it. China.
Everything that I've heard about Lindsey Graham is not that Lindsey Graham is looking for sweet Taiwanese tail. It's that he'll show up wherever there's a free meal, supposedly.
Yeah. Well, I get you.
I'm like, Lindsey Graham's that person where it's like, if there's a fucking potluck, he won't bring a dish, but he'll certainly eat yours.
Lindsey, if you ever want to come to a potluck in Pensacola, I would be happy to host you. What I think is interesting is he comes here and he sits in the Senate and he has this very micro-focused view of, I need to support Trump. And what I want to know is when he got on the global stage and actually saw what was happening in Taiwan because of his rhetoric, because of the collective rhetoric of America first, everyone else last. He's in Taiwan seeing these war games, seeing China set to invade. Does he realize that democracy is really struggling because of what he's doing? You know, and I hope that he sees the correlation between the words in the Senate that he uses and the actions of dictators around the world.
I still think, and as much as I don't want to admit this, I still think that if you had a Republican Party with an ounce of brain cells that actually functioned, if they ran Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney, I would guarantee you, not only would they win the Republican election on that side,
but they're so hated, dude. They're hated.
But if this is who the Republican Party endorsed as their candidates, not only would they win that side of things, but I guarantee you from the left, you would see a bunch of people come over and vote for Romney and Cheney.
You would see more on the left than the right, I fear.
I honestly think that you would see just an absolute fucking thrashing of the party, of the Democratic Party, because realistically, this is a shit show. They have not done well. No, nobody's doing well in this atmosphere. And you got to remember that Republicans are 20% of the population, and Republicans that support Donald Trump are 16% of that. So it's not like it's not like a majority. I mean, I keep hearing on the news 40% people support, 70% of the people support Trump. That's not true. That's not even 70% of Republicans. So you might be right. Mitt Romney might do it, but Republicans don't like Liz Cheney. And I don't know why. She is acting like a Republican. And somebody made this interesting view that it was these legacy family Republicans that are standing up for Republican values. And that's interesting, right? Like Larry Hogan, Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, these people with political families are actually the ones standing up for it. And I like that. Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney wouldn't challenge Roe versus Wade, but they certainly wouldn't support it either.
Right.
And Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney, Cheney voted, I want to say in the House, Cheney voted with Donald Trump more times than any other Republican.
Well, 97% of the time. She voted against Build Back Better, so she's still voting Republican values, you know?
Absolutely. She is a Republican through and through. There's no question about it. It's just that, you know, she's who I would consider one of the sane Republicans, and that it's like she has conservative values. She just doesn't trust that guy.
I'm the same way. Like, I kept telling people, I just don't like him. It's not politically based. It's personally based. He has no moral values. I'm not, I don't hate Trump because he fucking made moves economically. Thank you for juicing the fucking economy in a time when I needed it juiced. But you're kind of a dick about it. And you told me to put bleach and UV light into my veins, and you're an idiot, you know?
Like I said, if Trump's last 2 years in office were like his first 2 years in office, like if the trade war wasn't started, if he had actually had a decent response to COVID, Trump would have been reelected. And period, end of story. But he did so badly with all of that. He fucked over so many people.
Yeah, but it's like Biden's Build Back Better. He wanted to do everything in one swoop, you know? Like, I'm going to fix it all. And he took major chunks, and that's not how things are fixed. You don't avoid an iceberg at the last second, right? It takes multiple steps to turn the US economy. You can't just go suddenly we're in a trade war with China and that's going to solve everything. It doesn't work that way, you know?
No, and it was really fucking dumb. It was really dumb.
As dumb as the Democrats trying to do everything all at once, you know?
God, this has been special. It's
It
like
is.
Build Back Better, like the idea that Build Back Better had to be this giant fucking omnibus,
Yeah.
like just shows a lack of fucking foresight.
Yes.
There were so many wins that you could do, like infrastructure, like electrical infrastructure, especially if you wrote it in such a way that it would put people back to work in Detroit and Michigan as a whole, and Ohio, you know, in Indiana. Like, you could have absolutely done Build Back Better in that regard and have it be like, and you still could. There is, like I said, there is no reason that the Motor City couldn't be the electric Motor City. There's no reason why that couldn't be Detroit.
It's going to be, isn't it? Like two major companies just started producing electric vehicles there, or electric batteries there. It's the renaissance. It's going to be the electric Motor City any day now.
And that's the thing is that, you know, especially like, and I would argue, especially in this time where the more we look at energy diversification, supplying electricity to the grid, and be realistic, we got 10% of our energy from Russia. And so realistically, you know, we need to figure out ways to offset that 10%. And realistically, if you can supply more electric vehicles, if you can supply more battery power to homes, if you can supply any number of different options, whether it's solar cells, whether it's wind turbines, whether it's large scale factories that produce these things, microchips, any number of things that could legitimately.
Gil has a lawn care commercial that says, we got to fight high gas prices. Go with electric, you know, like their whole series of lawnmowers and hedge trimmers is built on that. We need to get away from gas, and that's skill. Like, that's a man's company. We should be thinking, and we are. That's the thing, is the same person that's buying a hybrid is still complaining that, you know, we're villainizing gas and oil, but they're switching. We're moving. It's just whether you're going to kick and scream and slow it down, or get on board and go with the change that we need, you know? Fuck, Saudi Arabia could turn on a spigot and solve the oil problems of the world. They're not, right?
Well, that's the thing is like, if the United States really thought about it, it's like, this is the way that you fight a cartel. You create a supply that they either have to undercut.
Right. How do you get off
or
drugs?
They get left behind.
Stop doing the drugs. You know? How do you put a dealer out of business? Stop buying his product. Yeah. Totally get it.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oh man, Jeffrey, we're running out of time. I want to bring this up because nobody else is covering it this way. Elon Musk, we talked about last week, got a majority share in Twitter, and now he wants to do a forced takeover, and there's this poison pill that Twitter's doing. I think he bought a majority share in Twitter, and he's trying to jack up the prices of the shares by saying he's doing a hostile takeover, but I know he has no plans to actually do that, you know, but people aren't discussing it as stock manipulation. They're like, oh no, it's a freedom of speech thing. It's not. It's stock manipulation to me. Is it? Right, what a way to end the show, right?
You really. I think it's I think it's one part stock manipulation, one part troll.
I think it's a lot of troll, but is it trolling for stock manipulation or freedom of speech?
I think
Elon Musk,
which is really, I mean, to me, it's really funny because Twitter actually tends to lean more conservative in terms of things available, you know, like the voices that are on there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, I think the issue at hand is that most people don't tend to recognize what freedom of speech in the online realm looks like.
Right.
You know, it's really
well, it's weird. It's you'll say something like "Happy Birthday" and somebody will be like, "I hate you." Like somebody tweeted, some Florida account tweeted "Happy Easter," and I was like, "Sorry, Easter is attached to rainbows. Rainbows are attached to the LGBTIA. Your tweet is available to all ages. I think I'm going to have to tell the governor on you. And that's the way Twitter is. There's no middle ground. There's no compromise. There's no discussion. There's no rationalizing. There's just anger. As much anger as you can throw at a tweet as possible.
Right. So it's one of those things like there's so much bullshit.
Yeah. Somebody asked what would you do if Elon bought Twitter, and I was like, if it turned gross, I'd leave. That's my right to do. That's why I left
or
Facebook.
Or then there's me, who does not have, like, I've got a Twitter account that I never use.
I never asked you for it. I never wanted it.
I literally, like, I don't use it at all. And so it's like, so yeah. And this is the thing was that I got it for trying to do some research quite a few years ago, and yeah, it really, I've never used it. So like, literally they could be like, yeah, we're just going to start deleting these accounts, and I'd be like,
yep,
okay,
bye, thank you.
It doesn't bother me if I don't make the cut.
And
I think that's one of the biggest things, though, is that people don't understand the difference between bullying online and their quote unquote upholding quote unquote Christian values,
right?
Which,
it's one thing to be attacked for something you do. It's another thing to seek out something to attack.
Exactly. And that's just it, is that people go combing through this stuff. They're looking for any reason to, like, because they're feeling tough behind a keyboard. Yet there's that within that group of people, they wouldn't say jack fucking shit in real life.
That's right.
And you know what? And that's the thing is that the reason I hold the set of values that I do is I believe in leave people the fuck alone. It's you literally go out of your way to spend time and energy attacking somebody else or saying something that literally isn't going to change anything. Right. You're trying to win fake internet points.
That's right.
That do absolutely nothing. There is nothing that you're going to do at the end of the day with all of those likes and retweets that you might get.
Right.
That's going to do anything physically, financially for you. In fact, I would argue that depending on what you write, you might actually find it very difficult to get a job because they go through that shit.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I had a thought and then I lost it. That's so funny to me. Thank you. Do you have any just the tips before we take off?
Oh, just the tip.
Just the tip.
I had a really good one earlier this week, and I totally forgot to write it down.
That's fine with me. We got plenty of them.
Here we go. I've got some really hilarious and bad ones. Just the tip. Any picture of Batman as an adult is a family photo.
Okay.
Because his parents are dead.
That's funny.
Eating popcorn is just swallowing a bunch of busted nuts.
Yeah, I like that one.
So, I would say, like, because my week was an absolute shit show, my just the tip would be make sure you're evaluating your job, what you're doing, and not going crazy.
Yeah.
Like, we all go through tough times at work. Like that happens. Like, we're all going to have weeks where it's just like, holy shit, this is way too much. But it shouldn't be that way every week or every month. Like especially like in project world, like, you'll get projects that are just absolutely balls to the walls for a couple of months straight. But if it's like that all the time, make sure you're not understaffed. Make sure that you're not, just being taken advantage of, because you can only hold that up for so long before you just break. And then not only are you not going to be able to do your job, but you run the risk of losing the job that you have because you're just completely exhausted.
Work is what you do. It's not who you are.
Exactly. So make sure that, you're checking in with yourself on your job and understanding that if things are crazy, they might be crazy because of a project, but if it's crazy all the time, then you need to take a look at what you're doing and figure out if, this is too much for you.
Perfect. I'll just say my just the tip is you need to pay attention more to what your kids are doing online. Facebook has this dirty little pervy uncle called Instagram. And if your child's under 13, they're not supposed to be on there. And I just want to say there is some very disturbing stuff on Instagram involving very small children. And you need to monitor that. You need to know what your kid is dressing like when they're doing these little dances and videos. You need to pay more attention to your kids because there's a lot of gross people out there. Sorry. It's just gross to me. I don't trust Instagram and Facebook to begin with, and to let my child just alone with them disturbs me,
I would say, here you go. Just the tip. Parents, stop giving your kids access to things just to get them to shut up.
Yes.
Like my kids have access to things because I have taken the time to review it. Mm-hmm. I have taken the time to talk to my spouse about it. And I have taken the time to talk to my kids about what they are and are not allowed to do on these sites. And that conversation changes as they get older.
Yeah.
Because eventually they're going to be adults. They're going to be able to do this stuff. And I can either set them up for failure later, mm-hmm. or I can set them up for success now. And being an involved parent, not a hover parent, an involved parent, helps them, understand what the choices are, help them make choices that are good for them to establish good processes, mm-hmm. and let them be adults that want to come to you later and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing something. What do you think? Because they're looking for information, they're looking for guidance, and they're looking because you have set them up for success so far, so they don't have any reason to think that you wouldn't do the same again.
Yeah, they're going to ask the questions. It's just, are they going to ask Jeffrey or are they going to ask the stranger on the internet? And if the question is, am I beautiful? Am I worthwhile? Yeah, you don't want a stranger answering that question for your little girl. You want to be there, and you can't do that if they're getting these. Just monitor your kids' social stuff, please. I don't want my nieces and nephews to fall prey to a predator because you didn't want to pay attention to them more. That's it.
And also make sure you tell your kids about what sites to avoid so they don't find your online sex tapes.
Oh yeah. Oh, that would be
I feel sorry for this generation because I know damn good and well that there's going to be a bunch of them that they're going to be like, Mom?
Yeah, but they're all vanilla sex, so they're all just going to get judged for that. Thank you for listening to Public Access America. I love you. Happy Easter. No, this is Thursday, so nope. Bye.
To those who would tear the world down, we will defeat you. This is our moment. This is our time. To those who seek peace and security, we support you. Yes, we can. And to all those who have wondered if America's beacon still burns as bright, tonight we prove once more that the true strength of our nation comes not from the might of our arms or the scale of our wealth, but from the enduring power of our ideals, democracy, liberty, opportunity, and unyielding hope.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbow. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You are nobody. It's gonna hit as hard as life.
Ask not.
Yes, we can.
What your country can do for you.
I have a dream.
Ask what you can do for your country.
I, poor little children,
yes, we can.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression.
In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
That's how winning is done.
Welcome to Public Access America.
Yes, we can.
Sunday live streams on YouTube.
I wanted to run out of that tunnel for my dad.
On Twitter.
And prove what?
Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Smart Radio Public, and Spotify.
Yes, we can.
Public Access America. History in the making. Making history in the making.
Did you guys know there's a medication that is proven to treat migraines and prevent episodic migraines in adults? It's called Nurtec ODT, Rimegepant 75 milligrams. If you suffer from migraine attacks, talk to your doctor to see if Nurtec ODT is right for you. Don't take if you're allergic to Nurtec ODT. The most common side effects were nausea, stomach pain, and indigestion. For important safety prescribing and patient information, visit NURTEC.com.
Introducing Under Armour's Infinity High Sports Bra. Its ergonomic design is molded to support the natural movement of your body. With cord-out padding, the better breathability eliminates extra bulk without sacrificing support. And quick-dry padding is Under Armour's fastest-drying padding yet. When you're lifting heavy, running fast, and pushing yourself further than ever before, you need a bra that will help you go that extra mile and make you feel your best. Shop the Infinity High Sports Bra now at UA.com.